A little backdrop of why I'm on this stage now talking to you from this company of Positive Intelligence. I may have shared it with a handful of you that I've gotten to know, but about 6 years ago, I was halfway through my time at American Express. I was leading a frontline sales team in the commercial payments business, and I was walking through an airport kiosk, and I saw on the kiosk the book Positive Intelligence. And I'm a consummate student of sales, leadership, personal growth, peak performance mindset. And so it was intriguing. It had a picture of a human brain with positives on one side and negatives on the other. And at that time, I was actually quite frustrated because I was going through the corporate bureaucracy to try and get to the next level at American Express leadership-wise. So I said, you know what, I need this book right now. I'm going to read it on my airplane ride home from a job I did not get. And I read the book, and this book really impacted me. It profoundly impacted me, I would say. I could not put it down. I read it in probably 48 hours, which I'm not a speed reader like Tony Robbins, so that was a big feat for me. And what really, I think, hit home with me was the fact of how kind of scientifically backed. I'm a hyper-rational kind of individual. I need to be shown the facts of kind of why people do things the way they do. And I was really compelled by how much it got to the root causes of why people do what they do, particularly under stress, adversity, and challenge, which for most people is a regular occurrence that we have to endure. And so as I was reading this book, I had immediate visceral connection to my youth growing up. I grew up playing sports. I was completely dedicated as an athlete. I wasn't the tallest guy, as you can see. I had some decent talent. I worked my butt off. I studied the sports that I played to the best of my ability. I had great supporters and family and coaches to help me. And I had a lot of potential, but I never really, in my mind, reached my peak potential in sports. In fact, by the time I was 17 or 18 years old, I actually hated them. The thing I loved most growing up, I had such kind of negative sabotaging mental tendencies that I started to deal with about putting so much pressure on myself and having such a hyperachiever mindset for doing it perfectly all the time that I fell out of love with my first love in life. And so there was a visceral connection for me there. And then immediately now, as I'm sitting there as a frontline sales leader, I'm rebuilding a new sales team. I had just come out of selling during the global recession for a financial company. I had hundreds of examples flooding my mind with regards to leadership and sales execution, et cetera, about how mindset and our ability to go from negative to positive in as quickly of a manner as possible is an absolute X factor and differentiator in our success and in our enjoyment of the process that we're all in of our careers and of our life. And I was so compelled by it, I just got on Google, right, the beauty of today's day and age, and I found the author, Shirzad Chamine, who's a Stanford lecturer, former CEO of the largest coach training in the organization in the world, CTI, because I wanted to reach out to him. I had to just tell him how much this book impacted me and that I thought it was getting to the root causes of why most of these other books I've been reading and all these other trainings that I've been going through and been put through at a brand like American Express weren't sticking and sustaining for me or anyone around me. They were short-lived. They were momentary blips and events. And yet, we were all habitually so wired to go back into our old ways and do things that we know we shouldn't do. Doing what we know is one of the most difficult things to do in life when we face challenge and stress and adversity. So I got Shirzad on the phone. Lucky me, I cold called him, and I said, hey, Shirzad, I just want to introduce myself. I'm a leader at American Express. I'm curious, do you have any plans of really driving trainings or initiatives for really helping people improve their positive intelligence level or the percent of time their mind's serving them versus sabotaging them? And he said, well, you know, it's funny you should reach out to me, Adam, because last month, Tony Robbins called me out of the blue. And he said, this is the best freaking book I've read in 30 or 40 years of speed reading books. If you know Tony's story, self-made, billionaire, that speed reads books and then obviously puts them into a very compelling and fun, entertaining package for us all to grow on. And so I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting little fact. You don't run across that kind of a thing every day. And he particularly saw a vision that I was kind of probing on, which was Shirzad thinking about leveraging this towards commercial employees, towards salespeople, customer-facing people, leadership. Because Tony, firsthand in that industry, saw over and over again how many times, despite great intent, great effort, a lot of investment, people constantly get in their own way. And they don't even realize they're doing it. And they have all these regrets. And so it's this vicious cycle. So I knew right off the bat something was here. And if I'm being very honest with you all, 6 years ago to the day, or whenever that was that I specifically called him, I knew that I was meant to have picked up that book. And somehow, I didn't know exactly how it was going to happen, we were going to probably work together. I had no desire to leave American Express at the time. But there was something in my gut that just told me this is a special connection, so I nurtured it. I encourage, if you ever come across something like this, for you to do it as well. I had no expectations. I just maintained a friendship and nurtured this relationship with Shahzad. I went through early iterations of his training program, which were quite traditional. A once-a-week webinar with Shahzad, leading it with a group of 20 participants. And then there was a lot on you as the individual to do the due diligence and have the self-discipline to do the daily exercises required to really help to build up kind of the mental fitness that you need to start to improve the percent of time your mind's serving you versus sabotaging you. For me, even back then, because I was so interested in the subject and because it resonated with me and I took it so seriously, it was the most profound thing I ever went through. And my wife said, it's the best you have ever been. And I said, well, what was I like before? But she said, man, I've just never seen such a radical transformation in a 6-week period from the way I approached relationships, the way I approached my kind of stress and happiness levels. And of course, it was something that definitely helped me in my productivity and my daily work life. Shahzad, coming from the coach training world, he's heavily invested in the whole L&D landscape. He knew very well kind of the areas of opportunity that exist out there in our traditional learning and development world. And so he knew that this couldn't be just another event. This couldn't be just another book, because that stuff never lasts. So while he was thrilled to have written a New York Times bestseller, he knew he needed to create an operationalized way that was super pragmatic for the busy working professionals. We never think we have enough time for ourselves, right? Barely even to work out. That we could actually start to improve on this and receive and sustain measurable improvements towards our ability to control our mind. And so at that point, he and I just kind of linked up, and I jumped off. I took off the golden handcuffs of working for an amazing brand like American Express and jumped in about 5 months ago to be the Chief Revenue Officer. And I like to refer to myself as Chief Evangelist because I really do believe in this at my core. This is not a job for me. This is a mission. I believe mental fitness and the concept that positive intelligence provides to measure it, help you improve on it, help you realize what's holding you back from developing it, is the most holistic, operationalized way that you will become more mentally fit in life. And I believe that over time, mental fitness will be as common of a desire for us as a human species as physical fitness is. That's my personal belief. I may be wrong. LeBron James thinks similarly, according to the USA Today yesterday, signing a big deal with Calm and phrasing his belief in mental fitness as well. So I think people are catching on, and I'm really excited to talk about how we think we complement the efforts of mental fitness.